Hello, this is Logan with Lumberjack Tools, and today we're going to do a complete assembly of the Drill Sergeant angle drill system. So before we get started, it's important to always check in the manual that everything in your box is accounted for. So you'll want to check the items listed up on the top here and just reference them to make sure they're in there. There'll be two separate parts bags in there, and they'll be labeled 1 and 2, and you can see that here on the manual as well, the bag 1 and 2. And then also just a list of required tools to assemble this. Okay, so you'll see that there's going to be a box that holds both of your arms. There'll also be a wrapped, this is the cross plate that goes on top. The base plate will be in a box with the drill chuck, and there will also be a box with the slide plate, and that's going to include the shank that goes with this. And lastly, the base plate, always check on the bottom of your box. This is going to be in the bottom of your box wrapped in paper. Right, so the first step to do is you want to lay out all your parts here. So we're going to start with bag 1, and we're going to empty this bag out. Then with a little bit of magic, we'll get these all organized. Just like that, they're all organized. Okay, so this first step is going to be attaching the arms of the Drill Sergeant to the base plate, so we'll show you how to do that here. Alright, so to get started, first we're going to need the 1/2-inch shoulder screws, which are part 2B in the manual, and we'll need, I call them the gold washers. It's part 2J. They're a 1/2-inch washer, and there should be 16 of them in your hardware kit. So then we're going to set 4 of these on the outside. So you want to stick your shoulder bolt through the bottom, and it should just sit in there just like so, and put your washers over it. And then we're halfway there. Then next you'll need the carriage bolt, and that's part 2G, and you're going to also use these washers on it as well. And you just want to get it started through here, because we're going to have to attach the arm to it, and put your 4 washers over the outside of this. And then you're going to take your arm and you're going to carefully line up the holes so that it should go through both of these at the same time. And then you can very carefully attach your nut to the shoulder bolt at the base. And then to secure this carriage bolt, you'll need these nylon spacers, which are part 2I. And but before we put that on, we actually need one more part. We need the 3/8 inch washers, which is part 2K. So always be sure to reference your manual and your parts, because there are a lot of parts in here and you don't want to mix up any parts. Then lastly, to secure that carriage bolt, we need part 2A, which is the handle nut, and that just turns on righty-tighty. And you'll just want to turn that till you feel it firm up. And then I'm going to take a 9/16 inch wrench and a 1/4 inch Allen wrench to tighten up the shoulder bolt. Once you've secured your nylock nut on the shoulder bolt, just give your arm a test by gently loosening this handle, and just test that the arm can freely adjust before moving on. Alright, so next we'll attach the other arm to the same base plate, just on the opposite side. And a point of note is that it is easier to attach these with a second person, because as you can see, you're holding up multiple items at once, so it's always good to have a second helper. Okay, so for step 2, we're going to complete the slide assembly. So this is what goes in between the two arms on the drill sergeant. You're going to need part 1C, which is your slide housing. Part 1G, this is the pillow block. You're going to need part 1H, the shank that goes in the pillow block. Part 1F is your drill chuck head. Part 2L is the retaining rings. We've got 2M, your thrust bushings, 2K, pretty much everything except for the nylon spacer, and these 4 parts over here, we're going to need all of these parts. Okay, so for the first part of this step, we're going to put the pillow block inside of the slide housing. It's important to make sure that there's a threaded hole on the front of your pillow block. That needs to be facing in this little U channel here, because otherwise you're not going to be able to put the grease in your Zerk. So you need that hole facing forward. Then next we're going to need part 2F, which are these big bolts here. And we're going to need part 2K, more of these 3/8 inch washers. You're going to need a 5/16 inch Allen wrench to tighten these, and a 5/8 inch wrench to hold your nuts. Okay, so then we're going to put part 2K, this 3/8 inch washer, over the 3.5 inch socket cap screw, just like so. And then through the bottom of the slide assembly, it's going to come up and your bolt head will stick through. Same thing, this part 2K 3/8 inch washer, and then a 3/8 inch nylock nut to secure that down. Then you just hold the screw with your Allen wrench, and then using the socket wrench, you can tighten this down. So before you fully tighten your pillow block in this assembly, it's very important to make sure that this is truly centered, otherwise your holes are going to be off. So as you can see here, I can slide this block back and forth. So you can either center it by looking down the middle here and measuring off both sides, or I like to look in this little U at the bottom and just make sure that my hole is in the middle of there. And then you can rest this like so on a workbench, and you can tighten it once you know that's in the center. Then you need to screw in the grease Zerk into the pillow block once everything's secure. So that's just, see? It's a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so I'm just going to start this by hand carefully not to cross-thread it. And then I'm just going to grab my crescent wrench here and just lightly tighten it. You don't want to over-tighten this and risk pulling any threads. So just a couple of turns to make sure that it's snug, but not too snug. So feel it start to tighten here. There. Okay, so the pillow block is installed with the grease Zerk. Now we're going to slide the shank part 1H, and that's just going to go directly through the hole in the pillow block. And it should slide. It's going to be a tight fit, but it should slide perfectly. And we have 2 thrust bushings and 2 retaining rings. So now we're going to take a thrust bushing and put that over. And then the retaining rings, they require a little bit of force, but see this groove right here? These will fit right into the groove. And you push them down. It takes a little bit of force, as you saw there, but it'll snap down, and then you'll see it actually hugs around the shank, so it's not going to pull back through. Then that's the same process on the other side. Now you put the thrust bushing over, and I'm going to pop one of these on, again, the retaining ring. So before we install the slide assembly, make sure that we're going to have to take the base with the arms here, and we're going to want to lay it down with the back side down. And the way you're going to know that is there's this cut crush warning on the back. So that is going to be pointing down towards the table. So we'll just lay it back like so, and then we'll install the slide. Okay. And we want to make sure that this handle then is facing on the front side and not pointing down towards the cut crush sticker. You want the handle facing away from that. Alright, so another tip we point out in the manual is to use paper spacers on both sides of the slide when you're installing it. And the purpose of this is to keep the arms from actually touching the slide. So once everything's tightened up, this will freely move up and down without getting caught. So you want to take just a blank piece of 8 by 11.5 paper and fold it in half 3 times, and then it will slide on both sides of this. And so then to install the slide, we're going to do this 4 times. We need part 2C, which is this 3/8 inch shoulder screw, part 2D, which is the oversized washer, and then part 2E is the nylock nut. So the washer will slide over the shoulder portion of your screw, and then you'll see that there's a little hole on the side here where this is going to get threaded into. So I'm just going to get that started, and it should hand tighten. And I'll kind of get itself started in there, and you can use your Allen wrench to help finish it if it gets a little caught. Then, so you'll feel it stop once it's all the way in there. And then, since this is the lower one, it gets a little tight down there. So what I like to do is I'll put the nut on my middle finger here, my longest finger, and you're going to reach down inside there. You can't see it, but I'm feeling inside this assembly for the tip of that screw, and then I just hold the nut so that it gets started in a couple turns here. And then once that's actually on some threads, I'll take my 1/2 inch wrench here so I can hold the nut in place tightly, and we'll tighten this all the way down until it stops. So same thing, once you have your lower shoulder screw secured, we're going to put in the top 2 on this slide assembly. Same thing, just hold the nut with your wrench and tighten the screw with the Allen wrench. So once all the nuts are tightened on these shoulder screws, you can remove the paper spacers from the side like so. They'll just pull right out. And this should, yep, it's sliding pretty good. Okay, so the slide's installed. We get to open part bag number 2, so there'll be a number 2 on this bag. And again, we'll use a little bit of powers to sort this out. Shazam, got the parts in line. And there should still be 3 parts left over from bag kit number 1. So you should have a spacer and 2 washers. If you don't have these left over, you're going to need to recheck and see what you did. So next we're going to need parts 1E, the brace plate, and then 3B, which is your 1-inch socket cap screw, 3D, which is your 1/4 inch washer, and 3H is the 1/4 inch nylock nut. We're going to need all of the washers and the screws and nuts from that part. And then to get started, we're just going to secure just one side of this brace plate, so if we have to make any adjustments by widening it. So take your washer, put it on your screw, put it through, and then same thing, put a washer on the bottom of that, and then a nylock nut to hold it all together. And just get your nut started, and you can hold that in place with a 7/16 inch wrench. And then I'm going to use a 3/16 inch Allen wrench to tighten this down. So before we go ahead and completely secure this brace plate, take your slide assembly one last time and just make sure that you can go all the way to the top without feeling any resistance. So this, it might be hard to tell, but this is actually, I like the smoothness that this is gliding at, so we don't have to make any adjustments. If you did, you're going to need a second person to actually hold the arm. To see, I can manipulate this by myself, but you need somebody to hold this out, and then you would tighten it down. But since I like the way this slides, I'm just going to let it freestand and go ahead and tighten this all the way. Okay, so for part 6, we're going to attach the safety pin to the slide assembly, which is very important because that protects this slide from ever coming out and just free falling down. It can hurt your hand or somebody else. So we're going to need parts, parts 3C, which is the number 10 socket cap screw, 3E, which is the little number 10 nut, 3F is your lanyard, and 3J is the safety pin itself. So I'm going to start just by attaching the pin to the lanyard. So that just slides on like any other keychain. There's just kind of pop the ring a little bit and twist it around. Then this safety pin can actually be attached to the left or the right side on the drill sergeant. The manual shows it on the left, so for today's purpose we'll attach it to the left side, but it really doesn't matter which side you put it on. So you'll see there's 2 holes on the back here. You want to attach this to the upper hole. So take your number 10 screw and pop it through, and then you can put the lanyard over that and take your number 10 nylock nut and just get that started, and then we'll use a 5/32 Allen wrench and a 3/8 inch wrench to tighten that down. So once your lanyard's installed on the side here, you'll see just on this channel there's a little hole where this pin is going to pop right through, and that's going to prevent your handle from accidentally falling forward and dropping down. Alright, we're on the home stretch. If you made it this far, great job. The last step we're going to do is just install this, it's like a dead stop, so you can adjust your drill depths on the drill sergeant. So you're going to need parts 2I, again, which is your last nylock spacer, 2K, which are the 3/8 inch washers. You're going to need 3A, which is this 1 3/4 inch socket cap screw. And then part 3G, which is this wing nut, and 3I is the lock washer. So we're going to put the lock washer over the screw, and then this just goes directly through the side of the drill sergeant arm in that channel. Then we're going to take our first washer, slide that over, spacer, take your last washer, and then this wing nut just hand tightens directly onto there. And you can set this at whatever height you want. If you don't want to use it as a depth stop, simply loosen it up and just put it all the way at the bottom. So great job, you've completed your drill sergeant assembly. The last thing to do now is to take your base plate and attach it right to that dovetail on the front of your base plate of the drill sergeant. And then all we need to do is get a log lock and attach it and hook up our drill, and we're ready to cut.